Hi everybody, I'm Mark Lelah. I'm here to talk to you guys today, or you gals today, about coping during COVID. It's a big one, isn't it? First I just want to run by some numbers for you and get your reactions to this. In World War I, the United States lost 117,000 people in a year and a half. In World War II, 418,500 died over 4 years. Vietnam, 58,000 people died over 9 years, which all three of them total up 593,500 people died. A year and a half after COVID began, right? Is that how long it's been going on? A year and a half? In the United States, 586,000. And that's like 7,000 less than I just mentioned the other three wars. On 9/11, 2,977 Americans lost their lives. On January 13th, 2020, 4,320 people in this country actually died in one day of COVID. And after, how many days did we watch the news and see 3,000 people a day died? Over 3,000. Now, how many people here have lost relatives or friends or community members, neighbors? You have? Or you read about it, or you see it on TV, and you see people die in nursing homes or in hospitals and they're by themselves. They only have the nurse there to hold their hand. Their families can't even say goodbye to them. It's a terrible situation. Thank God right now we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully it is getting better. I saw yesterday on the news that every state has a decline in hospitalizations and deaths. If that's something to be positive about, well, it's something to look forward to. But the thing that really bothers everybody when we think about it, these numbers of 593,000, these are not just numbers. These are actual people. People who have families, people who have friends, real people like you and I. And that's what makes it so sad. And what also makes it so sad is that it lasts so long. I mean, if you think about it, I could think of like World War II being in England and with the bombing occurring all the time, bombing, and those people going through a long period of time of whether they were going to die. And here, when it first happened, before we knew about, wearing masks and social distancing, and, a lot of us were so afraid, like, we'd bring our food home and we'd put it on the counter outside, and then we wouldn't touch it for a day, and we'd use Lysol on it, and we were afraid. We were full of fear. And I know everybody has the same memory that I have of all this, is bringing it back, but as the good thing about this country is the United States always comes back, and we'll survive this too. Of course, it will be much harder for people that lost loved ones, neighbors, friends. That's something that everybody's going to have to deal with. I want to ask you people, what do you think what's a definition of coping? Just throw it out, whatever you think.
best of a bad situation?
You
Of a situation?
you have gone to the top of the class, because I was waiting for people to say getting through with a situation, but you added the most important words, making the best of it. Because if you make the best of it, then you'll cope with it and you'll be able to move forward. Right? So let's keep that in mind about making the best of it. This stress is felt by, we're all, let's say we're all in our 50s, right? This group is all in our 50s, and we see things as grandparents, as spouses, uncles, aunts. But every element, every segment of the population has gone through something. Let's just look at, let's take 4-year-olds, and we'll go up the ladder, right? So the first couple of years of the 4-year-olds is all fun and games. Everything is, mommy and daddy, and do what you want, and act silly and stuff. Play dates, go places, go to zoos. And then all of a sudden, your parents are trying to say, well, we're not doing the play date. You got to wear a mask. And the mask, kids probably thought it was fun, right? For a day or two, right? At the most.
Yeah.
And then the parents, what about usually, unfortunately, was for the mothers more than the fathers, had to stay home and be with their kid. No preschool, right? No daycare. All this stuff was either shut down or you were afraid to send your kid because we didn't know what was going to happen. Don't you think parents are worried about their children's development? If they can't be with other kids their age, they can't go to play groups, they can't go to zoos, they can't just play tag and play ball and play sports or dance or anything, that the parents would worry. So they had a lot of stress.
Yeah, I heard parents say, I'm finally getting to know my child because more time together.
That's a plus. That's a plus. We need to bring out pluses. Because some pluses did occur far between, not that many, but we got to look for some pluses. What about kids going to school? I know there's supposed to be no such thing as a stupid question, but I'm going to ask a stupid question. Does kindergarten count as elementary school? Yes. Oh, it does. Okay, so it wasn't a stupid question?
No.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, so kids going to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. What's this remote stuff? You can't go to school. You got to do it remotely. How do you make a 6-year-old sit in front of a phone or a computer or iPad or Z-Pad, whatever you call it now? I don't know. How do you do it?
They're all interactive now. The kids love it because they can touch things and it moves and it does things.
That's a good point. But then
they get obsessed with it and then they don't want to leave it.
You are this is another very smart one. What's your first name again?
Chris.
I
worked at Aunt Jocelyn Bosie's for 23 years with the special needs kids.
I'm really glad you brought that example up, because a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about, I'm bringing in from my I've worked this whole time. I'm one of the lucky ones, unfortunately lucky in this way, but there's telehealth, and I talk to people all the time. And then we had people come in once in a while to the office, and we had all these rules. But this one kid comes in, he's 7 years old, and the kid became addicted to the mother's cell phone. Everything was on the phone. He wouldn't even play outside in front of the yard on nice days. And they taught him how to use the phone and use the iPad, but then he became obsessed with it, and now that became a problem. So one problem led to another problem. And then that also was terrible for the parents because they had to deal with it. I found the most compliant kids were the ones in junior high school. You know, they're still kind of at the age where they want to please their parents, you know. And they say, okay, they heard the severity of what's going on, and they agreed to do it and follow rules. But then you get to the high schoolers. Oh, we don't have to go to school. You don't have to get up at 6. You don't have to get out on a bus at 10 after 7. We have to sit in front of our computer at 8:03. Well, I could do that. I could even do that from bed. Oh, I could just sign in without them looking at me? I'll just go back to bed. This has happened a lot. Chris, you agree? The high schoolers, but then on one hand, they like the idea of, well, I don't have to go to school. I'll sleep late. I'll stay up late at night. I'll play with this. Everybody's playing with this, you notice? Every age group. I'll play with this. I'll go on Facebook and everything you got out there. Snapchat, what's another one? YouTube. TikTok. Everybody's going on everything. And then they don't want to, and then what happens is it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They're having a great time. They developed a new way to connect with their friends at any time. They could even do it during school. There's no more rules, except you got to sign in, right? All you have to do is sign in. I don't know how to do it, but you sign in on the computer. What kind of stress did that create for the parents? Right? And then they get the report that their kid is failing. You used to be an honor student. But then there's a two-edged sword on this with high schoolers. They love to socialize. They love sports. They love activities. They like doing stuff with their friends. They can't do it. So they're full of anger. I saw it a lot with kids, a real lot. Then, of course, there's the people that work. What about if you lose your job? Were you open? What was the story here?
We had shut down for a while, but we worked from home.
Oh, you work from home. Did you like it?
I have done it before, so yes.
You could work from home and be a librarian. Don't you have to be with the books?
Well, we couldn't sell books.
Right.
But some of us had tasks that we could do on
Oh,
the
okay.
computer.
All right.
Did I like it? I loved it.
Oh, you.
I always loved working at home.
Oh.
I've done it before.
Okay.
In my pajamas.
Now, what about the people that, let's say, had to work in food stores? Food stores had to be open, right? What about these workers who made, what's the minimum wage around now? Is it $12? What is it? Anybody know?
13 something.
13 something. So you get these workers making 13 something an hour, and we don't know much about COVID as it hits. We just know it's deadly and don't get it. Right? But if you're either 17 and you get a job in a food store, or you're retired and then you needed a job when you retired just to break even with your finances, and you worked at a food store, and then you have people coming in and then arguing about masks, and you're making $13 an hour. And then they had those meat packing plants in I think it was Iowa, where the people was this close to each other, and they said they were testing, but they weren't testing, and then the whole warehouse got infected, and they're making $15 an hour. And the stress of people working on farms, they had to work, right? Farmers had to work, but who do they hire? They hire people to pick crops, people to pick the crops and whatever, cut the leaves off and water, and I don't know what else you do, but you know there's a lot. And those people were getting it all the time. But if they were head of a household, like I read about these Indians in this Navajo Nation, where they had one person working, and that was their job, to work in the fields, and then they would work, and if they had COVID and they could kind of cover it up and just be real sick, they would still go to work. And then they would bring it home and they would give it to their family, unfortunately, and their neighbors, and it was really a terrible situation. I know this isn't a happy subject. I mean, it's just, it's something that just hit. It was like 9/11. It just hit. All of a sudden, we're doing what we're doing. We hear there's an attack in New York. It just came upon us without warning and without direction. What about the other people that had to work? What about nurses? My daughter's a nurse. She works in Albany Med Center, and she used to tell me it was horrific. Everybody that came into her unit, most of them did not leave. And she and the other people that worked there, they would have to be the ones to lie to the patient, to say, you're going to make it, you're going to live, you're going to be all right, just keep plugging away and we got you covered. And then she had to lie to the family. How's he doing? She didn't want to say they're going to die. She knew it because of, unfortunately, this became experience. You were intubated, it went downhill. Once in a while it was a miracle. As you saw on TV, they show people who are in the hospitals for 107 days and everybody claps, and it's a great moment, isn't it? I never met this guy, and he became one of my clients and was telephone, you know, and he was and he still is a nurse. And he called me up, and we were kind of done after about 5 months ago. And then he called me up about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I can't do it anymore. There's so much stress. I'm so overwhelmed. I can't take it. I lie to patients. I lie to family. I can't take it. So going back to what Shirley said before, the definition of coping is getting through a bad situation as best you can. So I said to him, what are you going to do? Do you have a plan? You always need a plan if you want to cope, to get out of this mess, to relieve stress. No matter how bad it is, we all want to relieve stress and move forward. He had a plan. He said he and his girlfriend, who also worked in a hospital, couldn't take it either. And they said, we're going to become traveling nurses, go to California, because they only had a lease, they're young people. It's easy to get a traveling nursing job. Anyway, nurses are such in high demand, as everybody knows, you know. And you get small contracts, and we'll look at the contract, and if it's, we want to work in a hospital, but not on a COVID unit. If it's, you know, for other stuff. There's other people get sick otherwise, right? Remember the old days? We used to get sick and go to the hospital. So that's their plan. And when he said it and he kept talking about it, he seemed to feel better because he was coping with it. He was moving forward, and he saw there's a way out of this for me to feel better about myself. And I said, I thought that plan was excellent. I gave him a lot of praise, and he felt, as soon as he said, I'm going in, his plan was, I'm going in tomorrow to tell my boss, manager, or whatever you call him, supervisor, giving you 2 weeks notice, but I have 15 days on the books anyway, so I might not be back, you know. He felt relieved. So people of all the population have different ways to cope. Some people don't cope too good, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Is there such a thing as good coping versus bad coping? What do you think? If you think about it, what? Yes. Okay. So can't hear that good. There's a buzz. What's that buzz from? That thing?
It's the air conditioner.
Oh, it's good. Keep the air conditioner on. It's hot out. Can you believe? Today's the first day we use air conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Humid.
Yeah.
But I refused to put it on in my car. I still wanted the windows open. Okay, what's a good way to cope? Name something you do to relieve tension or stress or to develop a coping skill. What would you do?
Eat.
Eat. Okay, I'm glad eating was mentioned because
Good idea. Good idea.
eating is in both categories. Good coping skill and bad coping skill. Let's say let's say, well, I'm home now. I got all this time. I'm not gonna just get Chinese takeout. No offense to anybody who owns a Chinese restaurant around here. I'm not just gonna get Chinese takeout. I'm gonna make a meal. My husband and I, we're gonna make a meal together. We're gonna look at recipes. We're gonna focus on healthy food, and tasty food. And then they have a glass of wine, and they have some music on, and they say, let's get rid of all this garbagey diet that we used to be on. Fast foods. I'm never going to McDonald's again. Let's just eat salad, and we'll do good. That's a good way to cope, isn't it? But suppose you go overboard. Suppose you eat like a horse, right? Suppose you're diabetic and you don't care anymore. You just eat anything. You know, it's going to be bad for your health. Suppose you have high blood pressure. I'll eat all the salt I want. It tastes good. Food does taste good. That's why it's good and bad. It could entice us to eat the wrong stuff. So do you understand why food is a good and a bad coping way? I mentioned the glass of wine. Could that be good and bad? Everybody's saying yes. It's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, but ice cream is better.
Ice cream? Ice cream could be bad. That's true. A glass of wine or two probably is not bad for anybody. Isn't it even healthy? Didn't we read years ago that a glass of wine is good for you?
A bottle is better.
A bottle is better. But a bottle like at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then another one at 3:30, and then one at 8 o'clock at night, it's not so good anymore, is it? So alcohol can be really good, and it could be really bad. I've been with friends and have a couple of drinks, and it's fun. you know, and doesn't make me an alcoholic, doesn't make me stop functioning. But some people, if they're home and they get a stimulus check and they have all this money, and I say, well, I'm just going to sit home and drink. I don't have to go to work. I just drink all day. It's fun. I love drinking. That's a coping thing that flies out in your face and will hurt you. What about political fights? How many people have gotten into political fights here? Nobody?
Yeah, I'm sure we all have.
Unfortunately, I got into one with a good friend of mine, and that's the problem with these group texts. You don't you think you're sending it to your friend, but then your friend's wife picks up the phone and says, "Who the?" You know, I'm not going to tell you what side I'm on, but anyway, I may have lost a good friend because of a political comment that I made. Wasn't too cool, I guess, but I was angry. So you got to know who you're texting to, right? And you got to, and what you say is, I mean, I've seen people just have rage towards each other with these political fights, even wearing masks. I think tomorrow, believe it or not, I heard, am I correct on this? New York State, no mask if you're fully vaccinated. Everybody agrees?
Yes.
And it's kind of it's really strange though if you think about it. A lot of people, even hearing that, are nervous. Like in our next door state, New Jersey, Governor Murphy said, not so fast. We want another month. Okay, I mean, all right. He was talking about how the numbers are coming down, but they've had 2 spikes in Jersey, and they've had a lot of death there, and people are still afraid, which is understandable. Any comments yet so far? Anybody?
Well, as far as that goes, you really have no idea how bad it is unless everybody gets tested, and not everyone gets tested. So there are people walking around that might be asymptomatic and they don't know.
Or people that say, what about the people that say, oh, yeah, I was tested, and they hate masks, so they're not going to wear a mask, and they're not going to get the vaccine. So there are liars out there, right? Many liars out there. I mean, but at least the science is showing us that if we're fully vaccinated, we are really in good shape.
We're not gonna die, but
And if we get COVID, we're going to get it a little teeny bit. In fact, here's an example, all right? In what month was it? February. I get my I get my first vaccine. Really excited. And meanwhile, my son has been sick with a bad cold. Lives in the house with us. It's me, my son, and my wife living together. I come home, I'm happy. I guess, hey, I got my vaccine. I feel great. You know, this is fantastic. 20 minutes later, my son comes through the door and he goes, I got COVID. So my wife and I, we said, okay. Go upstairs, isolate, stay there. We'll bring you food and put it on a tray. And then I look at her and I say, we should get tested, And she's scheduled for a vaccine in Liberty. It was this was in March already, or late February, on a Saturday. So I said, well, let's go to this place in Woodbury Commons. I forget what it's called. There's a place there. You don't even need an appointment. You go and get tested. Let's go there. We'll get tested and we'll have some peace of mind because we're exposed to our son now. So we go there and we get this rapid test. And they say, call you up in half hour. So we were walking around Woodbury Commons. It's outdoors. We had masks on, We get the call, good news, you're both negative. Great, great, great. The next day, my wife and I take her to Liberty to get her COVID vaccine. She says, I was tested, I was negative. They say, great, bingo, there's your shot. This is Saturday. Sunday, get a phone call from the lab. The ones that did the PCR, that's the permanent, not the permanent, the 100% accurate test. Guess what? My wife is positive. I had the vaccine. I never got it. I can't believe it. Never got it. So anyway, she had the vaccine. Maybe she shouldn't have gotten it, but she didn't lie. She said she was negative, and she only got very mild symptoms for like a day or two. She had a queasy stomach. My mother-in-law lives next door to us, who's gonna be in June. That's 97. And we would be going back and forth over there all the time, helping with food and shopping. And my wife was with her all the time. That's my wife's mother. Back and forth in the car, talk. Her hearing's not that great, so she would be loud talking to her. And we didn't always wear masks, to be honest with you. Within family, she never got it. And she was a little reluctant to get the vaccine. And then, hallelujah, Saturday that just passed a couple of days ago, she took her second one, and she didn't get any reaction. So we're all thankful about that. Okay, so when we decide we have to cope with a problem, we have to have a plan of how we're going to do it, right? Like, all right, I'll take me for example. I'll put me out there. I'm a very positive guy. And instead of focusing on what we can't do, I would focus on what we can do. I love bowl, even though I can't turn this stupid thing, and I have arthritis, but I can still bowl. Isn't that crazy? I don't know how I do it, but it works out. So we went to the bowling alley, and they had all these sheets in between lanes. Mandatory, you have to wear a mask. When you're ready to throw the ball, you can pull the mask down, but when you walk back, you have to pull it back up, And my sister would call me up and say, "You still bowling?" And my sister-in-law, "You still bowling?" And then my wife would go, "You bowling?" I said, "Well, it's yeah. I mean, I'm going by the guidelines. I'm going by the science. They say." And I'm trusting the government. They're saying, and the CDC is saying, some businesses can remain open if you take precautions. So I did it. And I didn't get COVID, and this was even before the vaccine, but bowling was closed for a while, I have to be honest. We didn't have a league for months, and then all of a sudden we had it, and we were so happy. I'm telling you. And there was no more, fist bumps and high fives, and we would, nice shot. All right, good. But then what horrified me at the bowling alley, I have to admit, I'd walk by the bar and I'd peek in there, and I'd see 15 people in there, no masks on, and they're drinking. And the more you drink, the louder you get. And these weren't even people that were bowling. It's a very nice bar. I don't want to say, because I don't want them, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to give them bad publicity. I love the place anyway, but anyway, nobody was wearing a mask, and they were loud, and they're talking to each other, and I'm saying, this is risky behavior, isn't it? But that's how some people coped. they cope by drinking and stretching the rules. So, okay, I like bowling. I have a typical, I don't know if it's typical or atypical man cave. So I go down there, I put on music, and I do exercise, and I had fun down there. You know, I spent a lot of time, and maybe too much, I admit, watching the news. And you watch the news, and in the corner every day for months and months and months and years. What am I going to say? What did you see in the corner? Exactly. The up-to-date death, the daily, how many died that day, how many died totally, how many in the hospital. You couldn't help but look at it, right? So that was very stressful. I finally said, all right, enough already. I could watch maybe 3 hours of the news instead of 7, you know. My wife finally had enough. She said, "You watching too much. I'm not going to do it." And she was smarter than me. I give her credit, Mary Ellen. If you're watching, you're smarter than me. Sometimes. What about when? Another example I'm going to give you of myself. When my mother was sick and dying, she was 90 years old, 92, and I was upset, and you know I was going to grieve, and really I felt bad. Obviously, everybody here, I'm sure, lost their mother, most of us, and but my mother gave me a gift before she died. On her deathbed, she saw I was sad and everything, and my sister was there with me, and thank God, she died in her home of 50 years or 60 years, I don't even remember anymore, in her own bed, you know. And she said, "I had a great life, no regrets." And when she said that, you know, I said, "Wow, that is great. I'm going to be able to cope with your passing." I felt good. I felt good that she said that. And then it finally dawned on me, because I had a talk at the funeral, when there were funerals. She died in 2016. So I said something about, I can never understand the meaning of people would talk about a celebration of life. I always thought that was ridiculous. What are you talking about? Celebration of life. A person died, you know, we need to be sad. But I finally understood what a celebration of life meant. And I was able to take this as a gift that she gave me. And then when I think about her, I never think about the end. I think about when she was, you know, like my age now. I'm only 43, but I think about like that age. And then my father, when he died, he had a heart attack. He was in a rehab, and he just died. And I decided when he died, I'm only gonna not think about the last few years where he really suffered with his heart, but when he was 43 and 45, and he'd come visit us up the country. You know, they lived on Long Island, and they would come upstate. You know, up the country. We're going to the country. And they were happy, and they had energy, and they had money. They would treat us and all this, and it was a lot of fun, you know. So my thoughts of my parents passing is of happy times. It's hard, I know, when people die of COVID, you know. I spoke to a guy today. His father died of COVID. He was 88 or 89. He just got sick, went to the hospital. He was fine, and all of a sudden he died. And they couldn't bury him or anything. This happened about 2 months ago. But then they were able to cremate him And then this past couple of days ago, they had a celebration of life with his ashes, and family came, and his friends came, and they all paid their respects. And he said, "This is the best 2 days I've had since he died, because I was all full of sadness and having trouble getting over his death, but support by my friends and my family, and we had each other, and we laughed, and we talked about Dad, and we made fun of the things he did. It all made us feel better, and it made us be able to cope as best we could and move on and move forward." So that's what we got to do. I mean, we're all in this together. It hasn't been easy. It's been a long ride, isn't it? I mean, we remember. I'm sure we all remember the day when we heard, well, there's 2 people that came in from Seattle, or they were in China, or maybe they came to Seattle, and now then it was 8, and there was 16. But after a while, everything will be fine. And we said, wow, yeah, all right, okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. And then it got, as I said, the numbers before, a 9/11, more than a 9/11 death occurrence was happening every single day. And then, yesterday was like, am I thinking right? It was like 607 died? Is that little? I hate to say little, because they're actual people. And they have families, and they have friends, and they have relatives and neighbors. But things the vaccine is like phenomenal. And all of a sudden, we could take off our masks. Maybe the summer league that I'm joining, that starts this week, maybe we don't need masks anymore. Maybe we could tear the sheets down. Who knows? But I think we need to prove that we're vaccinated. Everybody's got the card, right? You got a card. It's easy to prove. And if you don't want to get the vaccine, people don't want it, that's fine. But they need to wear their mask, and that's the rule, and it is what it is, but that's a good rule, I think. Do you guys agree, or you think it's a bad rule? Oh, okay, good. Any comments, questions, stories, jokes?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead, Andy.
There was another group of people who are still suffering from COVID, not literally, and that's college students.
Oh, I have it written down. Sandy, thank you very much. Tell us about college students and kids wanting to go away for the first time to college.
Well, I have one granddaughter.
How old?
She's 19.
Was she going to be a freshman, or?
Well, she's I don't know how she's a junior but senior status because of the amount of credit.
Yeah.
But she went to Binghamton, and within 3 months it got shut down. They came home, and everything was virtual. And she went back this year, and everything was virtual. But she did stay up in Binghamton, but there was no college life for them. They didn't get the full college rah. My other granddaughter, she was in University of Alabama. All of her classes were virtual. She had no in-person.
And what was she already a senior, or?
She just graduated magna cum laude.
Oh yeah, great.
She was a senior, and she stayed in her apartment all day long. Took classes, never went on campus.
How many people here went to college and went away for college? Okay, so a number of us. I have to admit, I had a ball in college. And if I knew then what I know now and didn't get what I got, the friends that I made, that I still have to this day, and the good, wholesome fun we had, Yeah, we did get an education, but we also had a great time.
Secondary.
Secondary, I wasn't too serious my first 2 years, I have to be honest. Later on, I guess I had to, because I wanted to get a decent job, so I said, well, I guess I have to do something, and worked hard finally. But that's an excellent point. And I'm thinking back, and you mentioned that. When I was in 10th grade, if you said to me, I got to stay home, go on the computer at 8:06, sign in, and some classes, though, you have to show your face, I think, right? Show your face, sign in, and then you get all this homework to do, and you have to do it in your house, and you're home with just you and your dog and your mother and your sister and your father, maybe, unless he's working from home, I don't know. That would be hell. I can't see how I would have done that. I played baseball in the summertime, in the spring and the fall. We were outside playing stickball, football. We were playing basketball. We went to Jones. I lived on Long Island. We went to Jones Beach, which was 15 minutes away. I hate to say it, but we used to see how fast we could drive there. Probably it was only 60, but who knows? I think we drove pretty fast because we were seniors, you know. Now I'm jumping to 12th grade. That would have even been worse.
But it also impacted the parents emotionally because of the financial, you know, the cost of college and what their children weren't getting out of college, and yet they still had to pay.
Did they get reimbursed for the room and board?
They got reimbursed some,
Oh,
like
really?
$2,000.
Oh, really?
Got reimbursed,
Yeah.
but that was about it. I mean, I think that's all my son said that they got. So, you know, so here they're paying, their kid isn't even getting a person-to-person education, you know, a person.
Right.
And so it impacted them emotionally.
Oh, definitely. The emotional impact on, that's what I said before, on everybody.
Yes.
You know, and college kids is a great example, and high school, and I guess 1-year-olds don't know the difference, right?
Just feed them, they're happy.
Just feed them, they're happy, or they'll cry, you know. Oh, but there was the one segment, not exactly of our population, but related to our population, are our pets. They loved it. How many people walk their dogs 14 times a day now?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, anytime you walk the dog, you get the leash, they act like they won the lottery.
Yeah.
They just are so excited, you know. And so they did benefit from COVID. I guess cats, cats are a little more independent.
My cats are indoor now, so.
Oh, so your cats loved you being home, right? Did they climb on you and purr and all that stuff?
Sure,
Oh, okay.
but they always do that.
Any other comments or questions? I really enjoyed being here. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I don't know if you did or not.
Very good.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And good luck and stay safe.